At a time when so many of us feel like our connections with people are distant and conversations surface level, really engaging with each other takes intention. I'm Ashley Gould, the founder of Attend, an everyday luxury home brand with products that set the table for meaningful spaces and gatherings. Our podcast builds on those spaces through dynamic discussions with open-hearted people, with the goal of sparking conversation around your table. In this series, we explore how designed spaces impact our lived experience and day-to-day life. Our aim is to help you understand what makes a space fulfilling and provide a scientific framework along with expert insights to help you create spaces that enhance your well-being. We delve into the entire spectrum of designed spaces, from our brain's relationship with aesthetics to finding the right designers, lighting systems, and objects that support your well-being. Ultimately, we examine how the spaces we inhabit can enrich our ability to be present and connect with others. Join us.
Welcome to episode 7 of the From Brain to Home series. This is part 2 of our episode with guests Hannah and Alyssa. If you haven't listened to part 1, we definitely recommend you go and do so before listening to this episode. You can learn more about Hannah and Alyssa at the links in our show notes. Ashley is joined by me, Dylan Williamson, to co-interview Hannah and Alyssa. Enjoy.
Hannah, I was wondering if you could take us through your ideation to production process.
Sure.
Maybe just like think of one of your favorite products or your favorite creations. I just think it would be so interesting and instructive for people to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be happy to. I mean, first I kind of have to set the scene. So like imagine a blender with marbles going in it and a gerbil on a hamster wheel with like a circus show going on in the background is kind of what's the brain space. No, but in all seriousness, you know, like creation is chaos at points, but I'm really kind of like old school. I really start with kind of like drawing and sketching. And drawing and sketching can be pen and paper. It can also just be, you know, like an air dry clay to get the form out. Really any materials. We were just traveling and I think a notebook is really helpful, but the phone is so fast. You know, we have a built-in camera. I can sketch on the phone. There's the Doodle app or whatever. I looked to a lot of different things for sources of inspiration. We were in Japan and I was just loving all of the shapes. I was like, oh, this shape. Oh my gosh, this shape, this shape, this shape. And I'm sure that I just look completely absurd because I'm just taking like a million photos of a brick, you know, of like a cutout in a wall, you know, a drain pipe. As an artist, inspiration is everywhere if you're looking. And as a New Yorker, it's really easy to also just put the blinders on and go through the motions of the day. But I think that I really try, similarly to what Dylan was talking about, to be present when I have these moments where I'm walking through space, where I have an opportunity to experience something. Architecture is a huge source of inspiration for me. And traveling abroad and just seeing different colors, different quality of light was fascinating to me. But I think that those are easy places to find inspiration. I also find tremendous amount of inspiration through reading. I'm a very visual person, and so I love when I'm reading and something is puzzling to me and I have to kind of think about it, think about philosophy or theory in a visual manner, or in the way that I'm thinking about these like kind of tenets to explore, you know, like formal shapes. How do I translate these formal shapes into an object that someone can live with? Pattern, like any decorative arts, I'm really drawn to. So anything with patterns. I love rugs. My dad collected rugs when I was little and continues to. He's just a fanatic. And so like we always had these really soft textiles, and that has been tremendously influential to me to be able to live with these patterns and explore them in a very close way. I think these are all kind of like sounding basically like, oh, I love long walks on the beach, but like who doesn't? Long walks on the beach are great, you know?
So in all of these ways you have inspiration, and then you must sift through them to decide, okay, I'm going to prototype with my straws, X or Y.
But sometimes also pipe cleaners. I'm very advanced here.
Or pipe cleaners.
Yeah. I think it's just kind of like I spend some time drawing, I spend some time making the models, and it's really whatever is most exciting. I think it's also, once I whittle that down, then I'm like, realistically, okay, I have a budget. I try to give myself one absurd thing a year to make where I'm just like, okay, budget aside, I have to produce this or else I cannot sleep at night. So right now, actually today earlier, I was just doing some drawing from the photos that I was taking in Japan of these shapes that I was seeing. The stairwells there are all outdoor because it's a much more mild climate. And to see an exposed staircase or like a partially exposed staircase just made these crazy patterns to me. And I was just like, oh my God, whoa. To be able to see what is normally a very interior part of a building be exterior. So I was really thinking about like, okay, how do I capture that kind of interior exteriority in terms of light diffusion? What kind of materials do I want to use? And what shapes do I want to spend more time looking at and refining in the building process? So, you know, I think like a traditional designer just is looking at it a little bit differently, which I'm also learning about. I think that that's an important part of the design process is to be realistic and to be practical. But I really start more from my background as an artist. So whatever I'm really responding to, and, you know, however, some of it is also like really fast. If I can make something really fast, then I just do it. I don't have to really think about it. Then I go from there.
And sometimes, like Dylan and I have prototype products and then not produce them.
Yeah.
Do you have that as well?
Of course, I have them as one-offs, you know, and for whatever reason, you have the shelf of rejects, which are not necessarily bad. Sometimes they're great, but it's just like, do I want to do this? Are they selling? If they're selling, okay, fine. But if they're not, then that's just for me to continue to explore, which I think is a really important part of any creative practice. Without some of those pieces, the one-offs, I would not have arrived at some of the other designs that I've made.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is often, it was just like life.
That's how it goes.
Alyssa, how do you find, meet, vet, and determine which designers to work with and include on your database? And I imagine, you know, that might be different for what Erria is now versus what it's going to become. But if you can kind of walk us through that process a little bit.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning, when nobody knew who I was, I did a lot of cold outreach, a lot of emailing. You know, I have a lot of designers on the site now, but you would not believe how many more I have in spreadsheets. Like, I probably deserve the like Guinness World Record for like spreadsheets of designers. So I did a lot of cold emailing at the beginning. And then, I mean, again, I'm grateful for this community for how I would say like relatively quickly word spreads within the design community, even if you can't hear it. So I haven't done any cold outreach since the spring of 2024. And since then, it's been mostly organic reach, people coming mostly, I think, through Instagram, finding Erria on Instagram, going through the Instagram and submitting an application. At the moment, I'll be taking down the application soon just because of all of the other moving pieces within the business and because the platform is going down, relaunching. It's in limbo mode, and I think it doesn't really honor the time that people are putting into doing an application for something that's going to be gone in the next few months. So yeah, a mixture of cold outreach, people coming to me. I love taking calls with designers. On all of the thousands of emails I've sent, I always put, and let's find a time to talk. And I don't know how many folks I've talked to, but like, I would say probably a few hundred.
You mentioned the series earlier where you went into people's studios and met with them and documented their practice. I mean, that's super intimate. Mm-hmm. For this, you referred us to Hannah. Like, I think you yourself have also sort of become the center of this web of connecting people, which is really cool and beautiful.
It's definitely my favorite part of what I do. Some people complain about their jobs when they're in meetings all day, and I kind of want my job to be in meetings all day. I would say that in the difficult moments of the last year and a half where, you know, having a lot of uncertainty for a long time about the future of what I'm building, connecting with designers has been probably the thing that's kept me going. Even this morning, I received an email from a designer who went to RISD with us, who was 1 year older in the furniture department. And he wrote me this incredibly kind email that he's been following along, that he's excited to see what's coming. And I just feel like there's such an intense need in this space for these individuals for some kind of contemporary solution to these issues that, you know, feeling the intensity of that need, I'm like, I can't stop. Like, I'm doing it for all of these people, not only for myself. And I love visiting people's studios. I would love to do that more as time goes on, find some people who really know how to do video production and kind of do extended studio visits on YouTube or something. It's so fascinating. I think everyone is a little bit voyeuristic to go into a space to see all the little trinkets, to see the works in progress, the mess or the orderliness of it all. It's really amazing.
And I think we were talking earlier about sort of the value of objects per se and art versus utility and all of that. And I think people may not know this, but if they can go and see the process, see how a thing is made, see all the time and energy and passion and creative energy and all of this that goes into it, I think they will understand its value better. As well.
I think also, connecting with the individual, not just the process. I remember I was at an exhibition once and someone asked me, oh, what was your favorite piece in the show? And the only thing that I could think of is naming the name of the artist who I had met. Because when you put the face behind the work, you hear them speak about it, you get to know their personality. That's sort of what I feel like makes it click a lot of the time. I think many people today are completely disconnected with the process of how things are made. And I think there's also a magic that happens, or a feeling of magic when someone understands, it gets an insight into the individual and into the process and gets to know how that object came to life. The first studio visit I posted was about a jewelry maker in San Diego. I was like, I'd be happy if this got like 5,000 views. I think now it's probably at like 500,000. And it's amazing to see the tangible impact that a single video has had on her business. It completely changed her business, probably forever. Almost within 2 weeks, she was fully booked for custom work for the next 3 months. And now she pretty much only does custom engagement rings. I think that so many people don't even understand that something like that is an option for them.
Right.
And, these bits of content or however that discovery can happen, I think really opens people's mind to the fact that there are young people like her out there who are silversmiths, who know how to cut diamonds, all of these really niche crafts. And I'm just so excited for the future of like continuing to expose people to this. And I do also just generally feel maybe a vibe shift in the world where folks want to be surrounding themselves with objects that have more meaning. I think there's also a misconception that handmade goods are always significantly more expensive. Yes, for a category of objects, that is true, but that is not always the case. Right now, I have a slide in my pitch deck that compares a $3,500 lamp from Restoration Hardware with a significantly less expensive piece made by a ceramicist in Los Angeles. And I just think that 95% of consumers don't even know that they have an alternate option. I'd be curious also, Ashley, obviously it's a conversation about us, but with you guys kind of building your brand, where you see yourselves like on the spectrum from like a Restoration Hardware to an individual, and how you guys are going about speaking about your values.
Yeah, I think at least to date, our biggest challenge is getting people to understand the value of small batch production. And I think that there are people who understand it, right? Like you hold a mug that's hand thrown or a glass that's hand blown. And a lot of people understand, like they feel that value, but it's more expensive, both because we're designing our own products, prototyping them, making them in small batch production, all of these reasons. And I don't think people yet understand the value, that value, or they're not finding it yet. But I think for us, the challenge is how do we explain that value to them? And I think it is a lot of what you're talking about, like take them into the studio, take them deeper into our design process, take them into our prototyping process, explain the materials. Like some people go to the store and they're like, well, this is glass, glass is glass. And they don't understand that glass is not glass, right? And that some glass I can put in the dishwasher and some glass I cannot. Some ceramics are fired at a temperature where I can put it in the microwave and it won't get hot. Some are not, right? So people don't understand because they don't have that education. So I think part of it is for us we need to do a better job, I think, at that education and explaining why it's different, why it's more expensive, what the value is, and then trying to explain to people the value of having those objects. Like you're saying, like when I have something that is small batch production, like I feel different using it. And I think most people would if they gave themselves that chance and they thought about it. And I think part of it is a shift in getting people to say it is worth investing in the things that I use every day, whether it's a glass or a couch or a lamp. Investing in, even if it is more expensive, although to your point, it may not be, investing in those things can actually, I think, dramatically improve your quality of life and your well-being. And people need to try it to experience that, to actually know that. For us, our objective is not to recreate something you can already go buy, even if it's a very, very small difference. Like this is our borosilicate glass and we've designed it so that it's like really beautiful to hold in your hand. It also stacks beautifully. You can also put it in the dishwasher. So yes, you can go buy a cheap glass, but this glass, you will have a different experience. So part of it, I think, is explaining that experience and then taking people sort of inside more. And part of it is trying to ask people to just like try it with something small in your life, right? A lamp or a glass or something that's not like a huge investment. And see if you can allow it to make a difference in your everyday experience. And if it does, I think you're more likely to seek out and invest in more pieces like that, whether it's a side table or a couch or a cookie jar. I mean, it really doesn't matter what it is. I think all of these objects can have an outsized positive or negative impact on our day-to-day lives. But we have to be aware and sort of part of the process.
Makes me think of it's a funny thing to say. I'm going to call my brother out because every time I go visit him, they have these ceramics that you can see the marks from the utensils over time, you know, and so the glaze on the inside is like all scratched up. And every time that's the only ceramics they have. And it drives me nuts. You know, and I'm sure they've thought about replacing them. And it's just if you buy, you know, those perfect pieces slowly over time, then you also reduce the number of times that you have to replace something.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's Dylan, I don't know if you sent me the book or you told me about the book Fewer Better Things by Glenn Adamson. And almost all of my life I've believed in that. And I think that is the ethos of our brand. It's invest in fewer things that you will use every day and experience as part of your life that will bring you whatever it is. Our brand is also about the spectrum of emotions. Life is not all about joy. It will help you in your grief. It will help you in your anxiety. It will help you in your joy. It will just be alongside you. There's much more power in that than many people give credit to the objects in our lives.
I think something that's really missing from the e-com space in general is the sense of nobody made something. Like this is just kind of like came into thin air. And it's important because the price point is a price point because like somebody's making this and they have to support themselves and they should at least be paid more than like a bare minimum wage. And it's hard for people to understand that, I think, because they're not connecting with the people that are actually making the objects. I think that's just difficult to grapple with in digital spaces in general, but we try to do a lot of collaborations and things to at least, make it known that somebody made this. Like, somebody has spent years perfecting this craft, and it's worth compensating them for.
So at the end of every episode, I like to ask a number of questions. But before we do that, I wanted to ask if there's something that we haven't asked you that you feel like you would like to share with listeners.
Yes. Live with color.
Yes.
Live.
When do you spend the most time with the people you love? For us, it's at home, around the dinner table with family, or sipping cocktails in the living room with friends. So why not make that time even more meaningful by imbuing your gatherings with pieces that not only make connecting easier, but spark conversation around your table. Amaton's collection of small batch, artisan, quality-made pieces for tabletop and home are not only made for simple serving. They're works of art designed for daily use. Whether you're hosting a dinner party or sitting down for family game night, our collections create a sense of presence and peace in every home. Shop our collection of dinnerware, drinkware, serveware, and more at amatond.com. That's AMEATENDRE.com. Gather by design.
With things with color. Color, I know like a lot of people think that color can be like intimidating and scary, and it can. But I think that try and experiment with different colors in your life and see how you feel around them. But color is meant to inspire and bring joy, and there's so much joy in experiencing such rich colors of the world and in the world of design. So live with color, please.
I would say get rid of your Amazon Prime account.
Oh, yes. Also echo that. Absolutely.
And discover your local businesses and learn to repair things.
Yeah. Alyssa, do you have, or Hannah, or Dylan, recommendations for how to connect with local resources in the best way or in a good way?
As someone who hires like upholsterers and sometimes other like metal fabricators, I love Google Maps. Just like, oh, okay, there was this upholstery place on my commute home that I passed for like literally close to 11 years. And every time I passed by it, I was like, oh, I want to go in there. I was just like, oh, maybe I'll get a couch cushion made. And I just walked in like 2 or 3 years ago, and I was like, hey, it's this like little mom and pop shop, and they do a phenomenal job, and they do all of our upholstery work. And also, like Alyssa said, be willing and engage with your local community and local small businesses. And then otherwise, I think the design world is amazing at sharing resources. Like, who do you use for X, Y, and Z? Who's your lumber guy? Who's your laser tube sintering person? So I think that rely on your community also is a great place. And, similarly, like what Alyssa is really building is a really broad community, a global community of designers. I'm so excited to see this next launch for you.
But Echo, I think generally, I love Google Maps actually as a searching tool. Doesn't quite work for the world of like art and designers.
No, not quite.
But Erria will.
Absolutely.
I mean, I use Instagram as a huge research resource. It is questionable in its ethics, obviously, but I think for the creative community, it works extraordinarily well. Even, for example, for curating this exhibition, because I had this goal of, including folks from really international communities and places. The only way that I have found to find designers in Thailand, in Costa Rica, the only place that they are all on consistently that uses the English language is Instagram, and that I find really easy and intuitive to use. So usually I'll go on like a Architectural Digest Middle East. I'll click on one designer they featured. Then I'll go through everyone who they're following. This is what I do for my job. It's amazing, is to find and research for all of these people. But if you are willing to put in the time it works. You know, if you have one creative who you follow on Instagram that's based in your local area, just go and look at who else they're following would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I second all of that and totally agree that being good at research and also just being comfortable walking into strange places is really important. But I think what I would want to add to that is also know what questions to ask. I think if you can prepare yourself a little bit and do like base research just to understand if something's broken, what about it is broken, what's the name of the part that's broken.
Something that I think is wildly important is how to educate approaching an independent studio or maker. You know, on Facebook Marketplace, they have those little prompts like, is this available? Do you deliver? And I think that there's a context in which something like that can really work. You know, as a tool for education, if someone has never commissioned a piece before, if someone doesn't understand the word lead time, if someone can't comprehend how you're going to ship a ceramic sculpture from across the world, trying to integrate some form of like hand holding, I would say, like in the next iteration of the product that I am building, just like purely increase like success rate. And I just think it's so intimidating for, you know, when you go to even an Instagram profile of a ceramicist, some of them do drops. Some of them do only wholesale. Some of them don't do wholesale at all. Some of them, for almost all of them, you can inquire for a custom piece. If you are not a part of this world, you have no idea even that that is a possibility. And you're always like, oh, I'm waiting for this drop. And then you miss the day. And then it's like, oh, it's over. And then you wait 3 months till the next one. You miss it again. And it's like, there's so much more that happens behind the scenes. The general consumer just is completely uneducated on.
This is, I think, such an amazing canvas for Erria to paint. Alyssa, where does the name Erria come from? What does it mean?
It started from thinking about words that indicate place and then trying to also form a word that does not exist so that I could get my URL. And when you Google search it, you know, it's the only thing that comes up. So it's based off of the word area, A-R-E-A. And I just misspelled it.
Okay.
At the end of every episode, we like to ask our guests the same questions to round out our discussion. As we explore in our brand Amatond, objects have a lot of meaning for us and can tie us to the past, enable us to enjoy the present moment more, and even take us into the future. Can you share an object from your life, whether you still have it or not, that holds a lot of meaning for you, and tell us why?
Yeah, I have this little sheepskin rug that used to be my playmat when I was a kid, and it now lives in my bedroom, but it's on my husband's side of the bed. I love to think about the kind of life of this object. When I was little, it was like the same size as my body, and now obviously I've gotten much taller, but it has so much softness, and now I'm able to kind of like share that softness with my husband. It just really brings me a lot of joy to see it continue to live on in my space in a different way.
It's kind of interesting to me that it feels like a lot of the objects I'm surrounded by are relatively new to my life. I've always had this dream that one day I would live in a home where I made everything. And I don't think that's realistic. Like, I actually don't think that's necessary anymore. I feel like my new goal is to live in a home filled with objects that I know who made them, whether that's me or not. I just cherish every little ceramic piece, wood-turned bowl that I've been gifted or have purchased over time from any of my friends. And it feels like each of those objects just like holds a little piece of my friend's soul in them. And I think that's really beautiful.
I love that. Can you share a favorite tradition with us? It could be from when you were a child or something you do today or anything in between. It could revolve around a recipe or a place you go, and then let us know why you choose this one.
I love to go on long walks. This was like a family tradition that We would take long walks as a family, but I would often also just go on long walks with each of my parents individually. It was really a place of contemplation. Even as a young kid, you know, it was like we're going on this walk, and it was like pointing out the nature around where we were living, or even just to go on a walk to clear our heads and not necessarily talking the entire time. And I find that I do that kind of intuitively when I'm at a place where I need a break. I'm like, you know, I'm just going to take a little walk, and that really helps. And then maybe a few years ago, I was chatting with one of my friends, Stella, who's the leather worker, and she introduced me to this term urban hiking, which I love because, you know, you go on a hike and you have this mindset that you're like there to absorb your surroundings and pay close attention to it. And you're going to find something beautiful, and you're on this journey and whatever. And it's been a really great way to contextualize moving through the city for me, as a way to just kind of like slow down and pay attention. I'm really finding like poetry in the movement instead of just rushing through a commute, which I think can really happen without thinking about it.
I didn't really grow up in a family that had very deeply rooted traditions or was religious at all. However, I love decorating the Christmas tree. That's something now that actually I've done for the last 2 years with my roommate, is we drive to Home Depot and we pick out a little Christmas tree. I have a variety of ornaments that I've collected, everything from actually ornaments that my parents grew up with. I had a handful of those hand-blown ornaments from the Soviet Union that are really special. And then I also, this past year, bought some ornaments from a maker who I really love in the UK. And so there's just this little eclectic collection of very much like single-use seasonal objects, but each of them has a little story, and I am definitely like of the boat to be collecting little ornaments throughout my life.
I love that. Yeah, because they're also pretty easy to collect.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even have that many. I think I maybe have like 10 or 15 ornaments. Like, it's nothing crazy, but it's just, yeah. Like, I even have one that I made when I was a kid. It has like Alyssa 2002 written on the back, and yeah, some from my parents. And then now, you know, like when I was living in Germany has tons of Christmas markets. So I have a bunch of ornaments from that season of life, and now from this new one too.
Are you in a phase in your life where you enjoy entertaining in your home? Why or why not?
Finally, yes. For the longest time, we lived in this like crumbling, stabilized apartment that was tiny, and it was difficult to entertain in because the rooms were really small. But we moved recently, like a few years ago at this point, and it's been such a delight to be able to have a space that is not crumbling, to have a kitchen that is comfortable to cook in. And it's really lovely to be able to host our friends there. So yes, it's a delight to be able to entertain.
I feel like in New York too, there's this patience around proximity that other people kind of lack. Like, you're just okay with small spaces and tightness, and which I think is really beautiful, honestly.
Yeah, it makes it like a really intimate experience, honestly, which is, I think, kind of what you want when you're entertaining. Is you want a closeness. And I think sometimes small spaces can feel claustrophobic, but I think we have the benefit of building furniture. And so we can really kind of fit the furniture to the space that we're in.
I love entertaining. My dream is to have a home that has a open door, and to one day like live somewhere where I'm the house on the block that has the Sunday night pizza or whatever it might be. But unfortunately, in this season of life, I don't find myself entertaining a lot. I live in LA, where people have to drive really far to get places. And I also live in a neighborhood in LA by choice that's a little bit more isolated. So it doesn't really lend itself to the most like organic entertainment. But I would say I live with my original roommate and her boyfriend, who moved in a few months ago. So now there's 3 of us. And you know what? We entertain for just the 3 of us all the time. Like, we cook beautiful homemade meals and share them all together. And I also think that's really special, that we just find that moment to spend together.
Yeah, I love that. I've had the privilege of coming to Alyssa's gatherings, and you're an amazing cook, so that also helps.
Again, one day again, there will be many gatherings, but not right now.
There are seasons. And I also think you can entertain for yourself. It's just about the intention. Yeah. So, do you have 1 or 2 top resources, books, websites, courses? This could be related to design or neuroaesthetics, or just something you enjoy.
Yeah, my favorite is Incomplete Manifesto for Growth by Bruce Mao. This is one of the very first things. This is like always something that I recommend. And well, I don't recommend it, I require it. It's always the pre-reading that I give to my students when I was teaching. It's just a great reminder that things in life change, that growth is never complete, or, you know, like growth is always a state, right? We're always changing. Things are always changing. And to kind of adopt this different type of attitude towards what we're making, and just to remind yourself, you know, being in a creative industry can be challenging, and it's important to remind yourself of those challenges. And the second one is practical. This is for creatives running a business. 3 points. It's the number 3 and then PTS. It's a great newsletter and resource that kind of provides creative entrepreneurs with a lot of really practical resources for the back end of business running. And I've found that that resource for me has been really pivotal in making changes in my business.
I love that. I've never heard of that.
Oh my God, sign up for the email.
That sounds amazing.
It's like a weekly email, but all of the advice that Kim gives is like incredibly easy to implement. It's not like, oh, okay, I gotta like do 20 things before I can implement this. It's just like, boom, okay, I can do that.
One, I guess, sort of design related, one not. So I found this book very randomly at the RISD library many years ago. It's called Homemade Russia, Post-Soviet Folk Artifacts by a guy named Vladimir Arkhipov. And essentially what it is it's just a book that has one image on each page of I don't even know what, like, an object that is almost like an assemblage of other objects that came out of necessity. There's a page that says bubble wand, and all it is a spoon with a hole drilled in the middle. I think there's others for like satellite dishes that are like a bunch of forks like soldered together. I keep it by my bedside, and it's just like, you know, joyful and nostalgic and a little bit, you know, kind of depressing at the same time. But it's also, you know, my parents also have a lot of stories of growing up in the Soviet Union and, you know, foraging for objects in order to craft other objects, and also maybe wish that in the society that we live in today, that not out of necessity but out of desire, we had a similar kind of practice where instead of, you know, constantly looking to buy something new, we just use the resources around us to kind of, to fill those needs. And it's very interesting to poke through and to read all the descriptions of where those objects came from. And then secondly, I guess not design related at all, I used to pretty religiously listen to Brene Brown's podcast. She had a few of them. I think maybe her podcast was called Atlas of the Heart, which is also the name of her book. But she has incredibly deep conversations with all different kinds of people. She talked to Roxane Gay. She's talked to Paula Scher, who is a graphic designer. She's talked to Kamala Harris, and she just has a really beautiful ability to draw out or to put her guests into environments where they feel really comfortable sharing really deep and meaningful pieces of advice and stories.
Okay, last question. What do you do for yourself? Do you have a practice, a focus, a habit, or daily routine that you adhere to that contributes to your success?
I started going to the sauna, I guess about 1.5 years ago now, and it is my weekly practice, and I love it. It's a lot of people talk about like relaxation and rest and downtime and whatever, but I find that even when I'm like relaxing, I'm reading or I'm looking at something, and the sauna is the one place where I'm completely disconnected, and it's just such an incredible experience to be able to go and rejuvenate in that way. Building furniture is heavy, and I love to be able to go into the sauna and then the cold plunge, and I find that that's just like really helpful for me to maintain that, like, the studio practice, like I need to be able to continue to build forever, and the sauna has really helped me do that.
I'm not really good at habits or daily routines like that, but my origins are maker based, And even though in my professional life, I'm working mostly on a computer, as soon as the computer closes, I have my knitting needles or my sewing machine or my saw. And it is, if you ever have lived with me, it is very common for me to be sawing in the kitchen at 10 p.m. out of necessity, like having to bring something to life that I have in my mind that must happen immediately. And I still have my little, maker creative outlets that I think really help balance, especially this digital world that I'm in for most of the day. And I don't know what people who don't have craft hobbies do with their time.
Like the sweater vest that you knit that you're wearing.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. Thank you both so much. This has been a really wonderful conversation, and I'm really excited for everything you both have happening in the future, and I'm excited to follow along.
I just want to thank you both, Hannah and Alyssa, for joining us today. It has been such a pleasure talking with you, and I'm so excited for the future for both of you and to continue watching your amazing careers unfold. So thank you for sharing your time and your amazing thoughts with us.
Thank you for having us. This has been really amazing to kind of think about and spend time putting aside to talk about this. So thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been really special.
Thanks for listening to an episode of On the Table with Ashley. Subscribing to, rating, and reviewing our show helps us to continue to make quality episodes. So please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. On the Table with Ashley is presented by Amatonde, an elevated, everyday, luxury home and tableware brand with products designed to cultivate connection. You can learn more about Amatonde at ametendre.com or on Instagram at Amatonde. By subscribing to our newsletter on the Amatonde website, you'll receive updates on new episodes as well as promotions relating to Amatonde and Amatonde's products. Send us an email at reachoutanytime@amatonde.com if you have ideas for guests or series ideas you'd like to pass along. Thanks for listening.